This is lesson 9.5. We're going to talk today about adding and subtracting rational expressions. When we add and subtract rational expressions, we want to remember the rules for adding and subtracting fractions. In other words, we need to have a common denominator. So in this first example on the left, we do have a common denominator of 3x and 3x. So when we add these two expressions together, all we have to do is add together the numerator. 4 plus 5 is 9, all over that common denominator of 3x. Notice, the denominator does not change. Then, if we can simplify anything, we should. So here, 9 over 3 will simplify. And our final answer for this first example should be 3 over x. When we look at the second example, we do not have a common denominator. So what we need to do first is identify what is our lowest common denominator. And so I know I need a 3, and then I have an x squared here and an x. So my common denominator needs to have an x, and because this one has an x squared, I need to make sure my common denominator includes that x squared. So my lowest common denominator for this problem will be 3x squared. Now that I have my common denominator, just like when we simplify and add fractions, we need to go and multiply to make that common denominator. So in the first expression, I have an x. I need to make it 3x squared. So what I'll do is I'll multiply it by a 3x. And whatever I do to the bottom of a fraction, I also need to do to the top. And so this gives me 15x over 3x squared plus 2 over 3x squared. I don't need to do anything to the second fraction because it already has the common denominator of 3x squared. Once I have a common denominator, then I'm going to add or subtract the numerators. 15x plus 2, and all of this will be over 3x squared, my common denominator. Here's an example where we don't have a common denominator again. So what I'm going to do is identify what is my lowest common denominator. Well, 6 is not a fraction, so I'm going to put it over 1. And so my common denominator here, if I can look here, should be x plus 3. So I already have the common denominator here in the second fraction, which means I need to now multiply the 6 to get my common denominator. So I'm going to multiply by x plus 3 on the top and on the bottom. I have to do the same thing on the top and the bottom. And now I'm ready to combine all my like terms and to simplify and do my subtraction. Now when I do subtract, if I have a quantity on the top, such as x plus 4 that has addition, I need to remember to put parentheses around that. So now this is going to look like this. 6 times x plus 3 over x plus 3 minus x plus 4 over x plus 3. Lots of parentheses here. And now that I have my common denominator, I'm going to combine it all together on one fraction. 6 times x plus 3 minus x plus 4 all over that common denominator of x plus 3. Now what I need to do is simplify and combine like terms. So I'm going to distribute. I get 6x plus 18. And then if I have subtraction, I need to distribute that as well. Minus x minus 4. And when I combine all my like terms, 6x minus x gives me 5x. 18 minus 4 gives me plus 14, all over x plus 3. And here's my final answer. Here's an example that we need to find a common denominator for again. Now notice, if I have anything bigger than just an x, or even if I do have an x, I want to look always to see, can I factor? That's kind of the theme with finding the common denominator. So I can factor x squared minus 1 as a difference of squares. Whoops. It'll factor into x plus 1, x minus 1. And now I'm going to identify that common denominator. I know I need an x minus 1 from the first fraction. So now I'm going to check this second fraction. It has an x plus 1, so I need an x plus 1. It has an x minus 1. Well, I've already written that down, so I don't need another one. So my common denominator is x minus 1, x plus 1. Now it's time to go and multiply. The first denominator is missing an x plus 1. So I'm going to multiply by x plus 1. The second denominator is not missing anything, so I don't need to do anything to the second fraction. So now I'm going to rewrite it. X times x plus 1. And now that I have common denominators, I can combine my numerators. Once I have it set into one fraction, here's where I'm going to distribute and simplify by combining like terms. So I'll have x squared plus x plus 3x all over my common denominator. And when I combine like terms, I'm going to get x squared plus 4x all over x minus 1, x plus 1. And there's my final answer. Here's another example where we're going to have to factor to find our common denominator. Always check to see if you can do that. So this bottom fraction will factor into x minus 2, x plus 1, and over here this factors into x minus 2, x minus 2. Now let's identify our common denominator. I'm going to start out by writing down the entire first fraction denominator, x minus 2, x plus 1. Now I'm going to go look at the second denominator. It has an x minus 2. I already have one. But here it has a second x minus 2, so I need to put another one into my LCD. Now I have my common denominator. It's time to multiply by what's missing. In the first denominator, it looks like I'm missing an x minus 2. So I'm going to multiply by x minus 2. And whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And I'm going to use lots of parentheses around this 2x minus 1. And now I'm going to go to the second fraction. It looks like I'm missing an x plus 1, so that's what I'm going to multiply. Now I'm going to write it all out as one great big fraction. Now that I have one great big fraction down here in green, it's time to multiply and combine like terms to simplify. Now here, with the 2x minus 1 and x minus 2, you're going to have to do your FOIL to multiply it out, so your first outside inside last. So when I FOIL that, I get 2x squared minus 5x plus 2, and then I need to distribute my subtraction, minus x minus 1, all over my common denominator. And then my last step is to combine my like terms. So my final answer will be 2x squared minus 6x plus 1 all over that common denominator, x minus 2, x plus 1, and x minus 2. There's my answer. And my last example involves adding and subtracting three fractions, and it's no different. We're still going to factor, so this first denominator has a greatest common factor of 3, and then the other denominators I don't need to factor, so I'm going to identify my common denominator. I know I need a 3, I know I need an x plus 4. This one has an x plus 4, I already have one. I have a 3 here, so I'm good to go. There's my common denominator. So now I need to multiply by what's missing. The first fraction's not missing anything. I don't need to multiply it. But the second fraction is missing a 3. So I'm going to multiply the top by 3 and the bottom by 3. The second fraction is missing an x plus 4. So I'm going to multiply by x plus 4 on the top and the bottom. Now I'm going to write it as one great big fraction. X plus 3 minus 1 times x plus 4 all over 3 x plus 4. Now I'm going to distribute and simplify. So I get x plus 3 minus x minus 4. And when I combine like terms, my x's cancel out, and I have negative 1 on top, and my common denominator 3x plus 4 on the bottom. So this has been adding and subtracting rational expressions.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.